Hey guys, and welcome to today's episode of Give It the Beans. Now, we have a return guest on the podcast today. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see it is the one and only Clara. How are we doing?
I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Oh man, I'm not too bad. I'm shattered. And I never knew that being an online coach, you could be shattered, but it's just my eyes are hurting.
At
Hence,
least you got the fun goggles to go with it, right? If anyone's watching this.
as they say, if you're watching on YouTube, hence why the bullet blockers. But anyway, less about me because people who listen to this probably know what I'm doing every second of every day from Instagram. But let's hear about yourself. Give us an update on how have you been since the last time you were on the podcast. Talk us through what's been going on since then, how lockdown was, etc.
Yeah, so we recorded our last podcast literally maybe like a few days after the gyms closed. It'd be interesting actually to go back and listen to it now and just see what I was saying at the time. Probably not much has changed in terms of my approach and where I'm at. Obviously the last 6 months have just been, intense, to put it one way. I think a lot of us have been struggling with the uncertainty of it all. And a lot of what I think has got me and what I've tried to implement with my clients through this lockdown period, as in gym closures and, even now moving past and into like new restrictions as of this week, for example, is making sure that we're focusing on what we can control and controlling the controllables and finding certainty in knowing that we're still going to get up, we're still going to go, we're still going to train wherever we can train, during lockdown, obviously in our living room and now in gyms, and just taking it day by day. So in that lockdown period, obviously we started a recomp pretty much as soon as gyms closed for 6.5 weeks. And then I have now been in a push, like gaining phase. This is now week 21, which will be ending Monday, after about 21 weeks of pushing my body weight up. So I am really excited to see the second recomp ever, what it feels like, what it looks like being back in a gym. Obviously I won't have to be doing 15k runs, all that sort of shit. Whew, thank goodness for that. So yeah, no, I'm really, really excited.
No, it's good to hear it from your perspective because I know how things have been for you.
Yeah.
I know what your plans are and, and whatnot, but other people don't. So
Yeah.
it's good to kind of hear you talk it through. But I think the 6 week recomp we did in lockdown. I think everybody did a recomp.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah.
It was the perfect opportunity to do that, and very fortunate now that with this new announcement that the gyms are staying open, so you won't have to go back to that. But I still always forget that it was your first ever recomp.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you said that, you were like, "I'm so proud it's first recomp." I was like, "Wait, what?"
I know.
When I think back, it was right, and I guess that I know I've not actually written this question down, but it'll kind of lead us into the topic of you'll get many bikini girls out there, figure girls, model girls, whatever it is, that will constantly go through just preps, massive bulks, massive bulks. Having done both, from one year to the next, and then done a recomp.
Mhm.
What was it like for you mentally? Was it different? Was it weird? Talk us through that.
I mean, I think the first thing to say is that doing a recomp and doing a recomp without a gym are perhaps two quite different things. What I enjoyed about the recomp most was that before that, I'd only ever properly dieted for 18 plus weeks for a photo shoot or for a show. So I'd never done like an actual normal dieting phase for 6.5 weeks or for kind of like a more limited period of time. So I actually found that to an extent it was easier to just focus and get through it and get through the day. I suppose like it can be a little bit different because the goal isn't to step on stage at the end, so you need to be a little bit maybe more strict with yourself, because sometimes what people find that the focus is, I need to be lean for this photo shoot, when that's not really at the end. Then you need to really be motivated, and maybe like understand the reasoning why you're trying to do a recomp, like what's the purpose of it. And if the purpose of it is to then be able to go into push phase and get more calories in, which means that whenever you do start another prep, your food's way higher, then, you know, I'm all in, sign me up. So yeah, it was enjoyable. It was weird because obviously I just like finished, well, I got redeployed into a new job. I was working at a GP surgery. My job is usually super active, whereas I was then working an office job. You know, you were allowed one walk a day. I was like, well, how the fuck am I supposed to get my 15,000 steps in this one walk? That's not going to work. And again, just training from home and trying to stimulate the muscle that you feel like you've built and that, you know, you've worked so hard to build. That was a bit difficult. But yeah, I think that having that sort of short-term focus was really, really helpful. And I think it just contextualized bodybuilding a bit more, in that when you're prepping, it just feels like it goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks, and you're still dieting and you're still 7 weeks out and you've still got all this long time. But actually, you know, 6.5 weeks, I was like, well, that's a third of a prep. Like, you know, it's not, just keep going. And then you bulk for however many weeks. And again, it's done like that, like 22 weeks. That's how long my prep was last year.
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, last year you qualified for finals and we pushed it another 5 weeks.
Yeah. So in total, it ended up being like 24 weeks. Yeah. So, you know.
You're right. It's a very long period, but I think it's certainly a good point to discuss, because a lot of people are all in or are all out, and there's no in between. And they're either, you know, bulking to get fat, or they're not even thinking about the bulk. They're not even tracking the calories or anything, or they're die-hard prep. There's very little in between. So I think that it certainly, from my perspective, I think teaches a lot of first-timers out there discipline.
Oh, 100%.
And the discipline that they'll need for prep. But I guess, yeah, that kind of gets us into today's episode, which is kind of all about the psychology and mindset of being whether you're a first-time bikini girl or second, third time, whatever it is. I think that, you know, this is a topic that you have an authority to speak on, being you know, high-level bikini girl, but also, you know, being an exercise psychologist as well. And there are many girls I know that look up to you, that you are a good sort of figure, not necessarily like the category figure, but you know what I'm trying to say, figure. Yeah. You're a massive inspiration to them. And even the girls that come to the brand, the new ones that I'll work with, they all say that you're Clara's goals. Which
that makes me blush. Thank you so much to anyone who has said that. That does make me blush quite a lot.
But, you know, it wasn't too long ago that Clara was a first-time bikini girl.
Yeah.
And Clara perhaps was on Instagram, you know, maybe looking at other female competitors that had been doing the do like you have done for a few years. So I kind of want you to discuss, did you do that? You know, was it destructive? And potentially how destructive that could be for someone's own, you know, personal journey, their self-worth. You know, talk us through all that if you could.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the thing with social media is that it was designed as a tool, and we use it like it's a drug, basically. And it's very, very hard to create boundaries in a space where no boundaries exist. And what I mean by that is that it's very easy to follow one bikini girl to the next, because they've all tagged the PCA in their photos. They only post their photos of when they're shredded, and they only talk about their good days. So it's very easy to just look at all this information and get super overwhelmed. You can I searched the hashtag, you know, PCA Midlands, whatever the fuck show I was doing in the first year. And like, I was looking at girls who were like figure competitors, and I was like, oh my god, they're jacked. I'm against them. Obviously I knew nothing about bodybuilding at the stage, but even some of the girls that I thought might have been at the same time, like on stage at the same time as me, which ended up being, you know, I was looking at them on Instagram just panicking, thinking, whoa, like, of course their shoulders are bigger than mine, this is that. Their posing is better than mine. And it can be totally destructive, because when you're prepping, or even like in a building phase, you just don't have the time to be focusing on other people. Now, record this, because I'll have to listen to myself say this in a few weeks' time. But it can be really destructive to compare yourself to other people, especially when you have no idea how they're feeling, what their journey is, where they've been, what they were doing before they came into the world of bodybuilding. Like, you just cannot compare yourself to them. And even if you were to look at someone who were like, oh my gosh, very similar backgrounds, very similar physiques, and you're kind of like still envious of them, really ask yourself whether you would exchange your life for theirs. And that means everything, not just the gym they train at, not just the dog they have. I mean everything. And the answer is probably no. So it can be extremely destructive, and that's why it's so important to really, really audit your inner circle. And we talk about this all the time, the whole, surround yourself. And it's not just surround yourself physically or 2 meters apart or whatever the fuck the joke will be, but surrounding yourself online too, in terms of making sure that the people that you're following and the people whose photos come up on your newsfeed, they're not creating that sense of envy. They're not creating that sense of they're better than I am. They're creating a sense of, wow, that person really inspires me to step myself up, as opposed to look at them and think, I'm never going to be as good as them. So it's a bit of a hard one. And I think that depending on what stage you're at, some people can have a bit more of an influence on you than others. Like I know that for the last 6 weeks of prep, so many people get muted on Instagram because I just can't be bothered. I don't have the time or the energy or the availability to be comparing myself to other people when I've got 6 weeks left of prep. Whereas in an off season, it's very easy, especially for females, to compare their off season to other girls. Oh, she's on so much more food than me. She's made so much more progress than I have. She hasn't gained as much weight as I have. She's only 5 kilos above stage weight, which in my opinion isn't quite an off season, but that's a whole different story. And creating that comparison, it's not helpful, it's not productive, and ultimately it doesn't take you any closer to your goals by comparing yourself to other people. So again, it's so much easier said than done, but really auditing your social media circle can make such a difference. If you keep seeing someone's page and they just piss you off, unfollow them, mute them, do whatever you need to do. Like if it's not adding to your life, it's taking away from it. So I don't think I answered that question, but
you certainly did, because I feel that a lot of competitors are coaches, PTs, right?
Mm-hmm.
They are like a small group of, like, when you compare them to the world, a small community that's so fucking worried about what another coach thinks of them.
Oh, 100%.
Whether it's a post, whether it's their fucking physique, their content, whatever it is. And I wouldn't fucking bullshit. I used to be like that way back. Well, say back in the day. I mean, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I used to be so concerned. I used to try and please everyone. And I think the minute that I stopped giving a fuck about that, you become a lot happier. But
definitely.
I think that question just sort of stemmed from there's one of the clients under the brand who I work with, and she'll know who she is, listen to this, who mentioned about there was kind of people having opinions that weren't in her circle, but she was letting them affect her, such as what you just said, comment on Instagram, or so-and-so who's been competing for 5 years is up at 3,500 calories, and I'm always like, well, unfortunately, Clara, you're on 2,400 or whatever it is. We're never going to be at 3.5. No,
maybe in 6 years' times after, doing the whole rinse and repeat. And even then, I mean, who doesn't matter? Is that amount of food gonna get me to where I want to be? Probably not. So you're in line.
Now, for this next topic, what we wanted you to do was just try and immerse yourself in Clara's shoes of 2018. 2018 was your first show, right?
That's right, yeah.
I can't believe that, man. It just seems so. I mean, to me, it seems like 5 years ago, literally.
It genuinely feels like that too. Yep.
I think we see a lot of first-time competitors they have a lot of negative self-talk. This is something that I know that you are quite big on, and in the webinars that we've done, you've always dropped some fucking awesome knowledge bombs. I know that you just answered some of it in what you just said, but if you could put yourself back in your shoes, was there any sort of really sort of poor negative self-talk that went on that you could relate to a first-time competitor now? And if so, elaborating on the other strategies you just said,
yeah.
What other strategies could you use to overcome that?
Hmm. I think that one of the main things you will see, especially in first-time competitors, but also even seasoned competitors, is the sort of negative talk in and around not being good enough and never being good enough. I think that a lot of the things that we see can be almost summarized into that. So I'm not lean enough, my delts are not big enough, my glutes don't pop enough, I don't this enough, ABCD enough, never, 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 never enough. And you see that all the time, and it's so damaging, because that sense of personal scarcity completely detracts from the things that we actually have accomplished. So it shifts the focus from the 1% that we think is the whole world, and it makes you forget about everything else that you've done. So especially for first time competitors, they might think that, oh, they're 4 or 5 weeks out and they're not lean enough, or they don't have enough muscle, but they're completely disregarding that this is the first prep they've ever had. They've probably stuck to a diet and a training plan as like more rigorously than they ever have in their life. They probably look the best they've ever looked in their adult life too. And yeah, and that small piece of I'm not lean enough, or I'm not as lean as whoever I'm comparing myself to, or as lean as I think I should be. Well, you've never been that lean, so you've got no idea. You just don't have a clue. And that the best way to combat it, I think that, I mean, there's different strategies. I think journaling can be a really, really good way to keep yourself grounded during that process, and sort of like note down the experience, because a lot of the time we look back at the really, really shit days of prep, because there will be some really fucking shit days of prep, but you wake up the next day and you're like, I got through that. I didn't cave to like the cravings that I had. I still went and did my cardio, even though I put it off all day. I still fucking smashed it, still went and trained, still got all my meals in, and I still, managed to get to work and do whatever else I needed to do. And that's like focusing on those things and giving yourself a pat on the back for that can really, really help support that feeling of not being good enough, because, well, you were better than the day before, or you managed better and you overcame that. So kind of journaling and keeping yourself accountable in that way, or noting down those experiences, is a really, really helpful way. Another thing that I think is useful is to notice that self-talk, like listen to it, listen to what it's saying. Indra, Laura and I, we talk a lot about excuse me, about negative Nancy. Sorry. And we say, oh, I'm having a negative Nancy kind of day, like she's coming around, and we always say, okay, we'll bring her in for coffee, see what she has to say, like have a chat with negative Nancy. And sometimes it's just about acknowledging that, yeah, you feel a bit shit, like, yeah, you are going to have some self-doubt, you are going to have some negative self-talk at some point, because we all do. But it's about noticing it, acknowledging it, and being like, cool, you had your say, you can now move on, like I hear you, but this is not true. And I'm not good enough, well, I actually am, I've accomplished this and that. And again, that sort of reflective process really fits in well with the listening to that negative self-talk, and again, questioning it, and even sometimes voicing that negative self-talk out to other people, saying, oh, I've been telling myself this, and someone will go, what what are you on about? And they'll completely hammer that out, and having that reassurance in your inner circle can also be really important. And if your inner circle is supportive of what you're doing, that's awesome. If not, you might have a team, you'll have your coach. We're really lucky to have that team. We're really lucky to have coaches too. So again, it's all about making sure that you've got those little bubbles, and that you've got more than one leg under your table to sort of fall on when you do have a bit of a wobble.
Yeah, I was so glad that you said that. I was waiting for you to say it. I was going to say, but what about having a coach and how that can help?
Yeah.
Using yourself as an example, you like to have a chat with Nancy quite often.
Yeah.
And you do like to invite her in for a coffee every day. And not only do you invite Nancy, and you invite Vaughn in as well. And I'm fine. I don't mind having a chat with Nancy every day.
Exactly.
When you're 3 weeks out. But it is amazing to see, I guess, to give you an anecdote from my end, is that how the difference in your mindset, how it shifts literally like that. The minute I'm like, Clara, pull your fucking head out your arse, you look great. Like, here's a
Yeah.
here's a comparison 2 days ago, you look leaner.
Yeah.
You know, or you know what I mean? Or like, you're like, oh my god, Vaughn, I'm feeling really soft because we're on more food and blah blah. And I'm like, Clara, look, you're a bit, you know, glutes are a bit full here, delts a bit fuller, and your condition's tighter. And you go, oh wow, cool, right, I'm gonna smash it. But
Exactly. Exactly. And it can be so helpful. I mean, I suppose that's why having a coach is so important, and having that relationship and building that relationship with your coach is so important too, because you can't help me if I'm not telling you what I'm struggling with, right? And if one day I check in and I say, I don't feel that great, but then I get my feedback and you're like, you know, we're all looking awesome, this is this, it's all rationalized. We're at that point now where we've had this conversation so many times that I know that when you say that, I can totally trust it. And I don't have to second guess it. I'm not playing mind games. I just move on with my day. And it's the same now. And I suppose like with that negative self-talk, sort of almost going back, moving away from prep and moving a bit more into weight gain, which I know we're going to talk about in a bit more detail in a second. You'll have days where you feel better than others, where you feel like you look more conditioned, more lean, fuller than other days. But it's the same whether you're prepping or whether you're pushing. Like, I've had days where I weighed 5 kilos less than I do now, where I was like, I look shit. And I've had days now where I'm like, I look fucking shit hot. Like, you know, and I'm okay saying that now, because I've built that in enough that I'm like, that negative, you know, you're not good enough. I'm like, well, no, I am good enough, and I'm better than I was before. And if I'm just using myself as a comparison marker, then I'm fucking happy. I'm sweet.
yeah, that's such a good point. And
Mhm.
what you just said kind of does take us into the next point, which people see the glitz, the glam, kind of often that's what attracts many, I'd say many females to the stage, or let's say even to do a photo shoot, because that's another example of extremity dieting.
Yeah.
When in reality, getting to there is so opposite of glitz and glam. It's unbelievable. Now, I obviously know how many calories last year you needed to drop to, how much you needed to do to get conditioned. So I thought that you could just talk to the ladies, the first time competitors out there, or ones that are maybe thinking about doing it. On, I don't want you to scare them, but I just want you to tell them, you know, how does it actually feel going through sort of weeks like that, versus what they might perhaps think it might be. Let's talk about prep first, and then we'll talk about off season.
Cool. So with prep, it's a silver lining, right? I think the first 2-3 weeks of prep, you start losing body fat, you feel better, you're like, yes, this is amazing. And you kind of eventually arrive at a sweet spot where it's kind of where your body wants to stay. It's quite happy, you're in really good condition, your performance hasn't suffered, you're not starving, you know, you're a bit tired, but it's kind of okay. And it's when you push past that, that's when shit gets hard. I remember last year, I think it was maybe like 8 or 10 weeks out, I just woke up one day and I was like, what has just happened? It just like hit me across the jaw, you know, without any warning. So I think what you need to remember is that often the better you look, the more conditioned you look, it is very likely that the worse you're going to be feeling at that point. Ali and I were talking about this the other day, actually. And it's, you know, past that moment in the morning where you check in and you're like, yeah, I look sick. The rest of the day, you're just like, oh, dragging your ass, you know, not all the time, but there will be days where energy's low, you're really cranky, you really, really don't want to go and train, and you especially don't want to go and train legs. You just cannot be fucked. The thought of cardio is painful. If you're planning on stepping on stage, the thought of having to pose after training before doing cardio, like, it's Megan. It's not nice, but, and it's a big but, I think the people will say, okay, well, why the fuck would you do that? Then that sounds horrendous. And I think what gets a lot of value is seeing value in the process, but not just like in the ticking boxes, more so in the things that you need to develop, almost like the person you need to become in order to achieve that goal. Those skills that you develop in that process, those are invaluable, and those last way, way beyond your 16, 18, 20 week prep. Like, those things are going to see you through a lockdown, in a pandemic, for example, or just so much other shit, because you've developed a level of discipline, focus, and personal commitment that, like, what you're going to get at the end, you know, is some really cool photos, and then, you know, the almost like the physique you've been sculpting and, like, you know, leaning out for, it's there for like the day, the week, peak week, and then you start working backwards. So, you know, you need to be really sure that the reason why you're engaging in this process isn't to achieve the physique, because you'll achieve the physique and then you need to be ready to be like, see you later, I'm cold, I'm hungry, and move backwards. So even though there will be days in prep that just don't feel good at all, like they feel really, really uncomfortable, you really will have to dig deep and push. It's about focusing on your why and focusing on what's really driving you to step on stage. Is it the fact that you've never, you know, never believed in your ability to actually see a diet through because you've always failed? I always give in, I'm just not good enough to diet, I'm not worthy, I can't look like that. I mean, I used to say that, I was like, there's no way I could look like, what the fuck, no chance. You know, when people text me, they'll be like, oh, you know, body goals, I'm like, how the fuck am I body goals? Like, I wasn't, you do you know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't even make sense to me. So, but the things that eventually not just got me to that position from other people's viewpoint, but the things that got me to that self-belief point was just that day in, day out, focus on the task at hand, get up, you know, make sure that I'm committed to the process, make sure that I'm committed to myself, make sure that I'm disciplined and that I'm doing what I need to do. And ultimately that gets you there. Because I was very much the person, you know, before I started working with you, I was struggling with binge eating disorder. I could not see myself ever dieting for more than 5 days without having a 48-hour, you know, binge fest, and then torturing myself for the next 5 days mentally and physically to get rid, you know, I couldn't ever see that happening. And when you do, and when you go, because I remember I was actually reading through some of my really old check-ins a while ago, and I remember reading like, oh yeah, I'm, you know, 6 months binge free, and I was like, fuck, like that's crazy. And that's not, I'm 6 months binge free because I'm dieting for a show and like I need to do this. It's, I've not had the urge to binge, I've developed, you know, skills that have supported me in the process, and I'm doing this for nobody else but myself, because it's almost like that bigger picture. I feel like I went off on one there, but
no, it's fine. I think it's good because it makes me realize, well, maybe I should tell the listeners that Clara sent over her, I think it was checking 146, 147.
130, 38, something like that. Yeah, about that.
Yeah, a heck of a lot of check-ins.
Yeah, basically.
all in the one document, right? But if there was a you know, a definition of a box ticker, it'd be Clara. But I think that because you've been so, well, I know I've requested that data, but because you've actually written it down, and for the past 137 weeks I've written a small essay at the bottom of each check-in, you've been able to self-analyze and overcome any sort of, you know, whether you want to call them mini demons or whatever that were ever there before. And for, you know, for you to say that, like, I'm thinking, can't believe it's almost going to be 3 years.
I know, that's absolutely crazy. And how quickly time has gone, and even to think back to like I suppose that the athlete that I was at the time. I mean, not that I saw myself as an athlete, but the person that I was at the time, to who I've now evolved to be, and now to be coaching other people in a similar position to where I was, you know, nearly 3 years ago. I mean, it's pretty mind-blowing. And again, it's just about that. I don't think I would be as good of a coach as I am now, or like in other aspects of my life, had I maybe not done these preps. And it doesn't mean that you need to prep in order to be good at this shit, but that level of, you know, rigorousness and just making sure that you do what you need to do every day. There's just not that many things that that can teach you that, especially when at the end, okay, you might get a trophy, but like you don't get to keep that forever. It's not like I'm thinking of comparing it, say, to like a university degree where you work on something for 4 years and then you've got the piece of paper for the rest of your life. With your physique, like, you just, it's an ongoing process. It's like, okay, then we're going to prep, and then we're going to go into an off season, and then we're going to recomp, and we're going to, it's never ending. And that's the really cool thing about it, that you continue to work when there's no real finish line. And if you're not willing to accept that there is no end finish line, that you do potentially want to be doing this, maybe not stepping on stage, but certainly bodybuilding for the long term, you really just need to love the process and really commit to that process too.
100% agree, because like, if anyone's out there doing it for the trophies, I'm really sorry. You know, having a plastic trophy on your cabinet, or a metal medal, which I do have one pinned up on my wall, it's not going to, you know, you don't do it for that. Any proper bodybuilder will tell you they do it for themselves, the journey, and this and next thing.
It's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
100%, man. The amount of people that give up bodybuilding because they didn't do well on the show is unbelievable. And anyway, I'm getting a little bit off topic here. We talked about a prep. Now, what I wanted you to talk about was, and I'm going to be brutally honest here, that there's a certain period of time when you're sort of first starting out, when you do your first gaining phase, where you just look kind of shitty, right? And you just kind of like, you feel like you're not got much shape about you, you're not that strong, like, and whatnot. And I just thought that phase is actually so important, because people, and yourself, you know, included, get very strong in that first phase. Right? They build upon that, and it teaches them disciplines that'll give them for future gaining phases. But talk us through that sort of the first ever time we pushed up when you came on board, right? 2018, we pushed up straight away, right? Did you at any point feel uncomfortable during that? And then during the maybe perhaps during the first push phase, second push phase thereafter your prep, well, which is the big off season, but you know what I mean. We had a mini push and a big push. So talk us through, you know, did you feel more uncomfortable then than you do, say, now? Because you look, and those of you that don't know, I haven't posted it yet, but by the time this goes live, I don't think I'll post it. There's a comparison of you at peak body weights.
Yeah.
And you just look so different. But to be here now, you had to go through them. Now, you didn't look bad at all, but what I'm saying in general is people will think in their heads, oh my God, I look really bad. So just talk us through that.
Yeah, so again, it's just one of those things where when you're pushing your body weight up, how would you put this? You need to have, again, that conversation with your coach. And I suppose you need to trust your coach enough to know, like you've said many times before, that your coach is not going to let you get fat or let you get out of shape, right? And that's kind of like the first sort of baseline thing to note down. Yes, of course, you're going to be uncomfortable. I remember the first time when I first started working with you and we started pushing all these calories up, I was like, what the fuck is going on here? I thought, you know, hiring a coach was to diet. I was like, I'd never done a purposeful bulking phase. I had never tried to actively gain weight in my life, ever. I'd always tried to lose weight unsuccessfully because I kept binging again. So that was just like, whoa, okay, weird. There did come a point where I was like, you know, at a higher body weight, and that was just a bit strange, but my strength was at an all-time high. And then we started dieting down. And then I think the second time around, that was a bit harder, because we knew we didn't have that much time. And because I was a student, it meant that, and I'd never done such a long off season. I had a bit less discipline. And because we had to gain weight a little bit quicker to gain that much tissue, you know, you go from being pretty lean, like stage lean, and 4 months later it's Christmas and you're like, you know, 7 kilos above stage weight. And then they, you know, when you're 5'2" on a good day, 6 kilos.
I'm glad you said that, because I was literally at button.
Yeah, like 6 kilos, it's a pretty noticeable difference. And yeah, you do start to feel quite uncomfortable because, you know, you've been also getting all this praise for like being lean, and you're like, yes, like I was that person. And then, you know, now your jeans don't fit and you're like, oh shit, that's a bit awkward. So yeah, there definitely are times where you feel uncomfortable, but again, it's what you choose to focus on. And there will be days that are a bit more difficult, that you do have a bit more of like a wobbly like body image on that day. But if you focus on your performance at the gym, if you focus on getting strong, if you focus on progressing your logbook numbers, then you almost have to just trust that it's worth it. Trust that it's going to work. Not that you're always pushing body weight up to then diet down, to then push it back up, to then diet down. But ultimately, if your goal is to gain muscle mass, like, you just have to trust the process, and having a coach there to make sure that, how is the program going? How are your lifts going? Are the numbers going up? How are we looking? And to see those differences and those changes in your body composition with the coaching eye, it's invaluable. So yeah, there were days where I did feel pretty uncomfortable, like especially at the back end. I remember I had like a pub crawl with all my classmates, and it was like a silly shirt themed or shit shirt themed, and I went looking for a t-shirt, and I was like, fuck me, like nothing fits comfortably, like it was too tight around my arms, and I was like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. And yeah, there were days I'd check in and I'd be like, fuck me, man, like not cute, because I had maybe been hungover the day before, eating a bit like shit, trying to go to the gym and like almost being sick because I was too hungover to really be there. Again, box ticket till the end. I will try. So yeah, so it can get quite uncomfortable at certain stages, but like I said, it's about knowing that, trusting that process. I do remember like being at the peak of my off season last year and looking at prep photos and looking at like show day photos and thinking, how the fuck am I going to do this again? Thinking I have like 12 kilos to pull off here. Like, what? How did I do that? Like, how did I actually do that? And then you start the process, and it's absolutely fine. And I think it's the same now. It's, there's days where you do feel a bit chunkier. There's days where, you might not have moved an item of clothing into your diet wardrobe, and you've got it in your off-season wardrobe, and you go, well, that didn't fucking work, did it? And there's ways and ways you can choose to focus on, scrutinizing your body every single day, telling yourself, oh, I look fat, I've gained fat. Well, yeah, you have, because you're trying to gain weight right now. Or you can choose to focus on how much muscle you've built, how much stronger you feel, how much better you feel, and how much healthier you probably look too. And it's about finding, to an extent, that balance, and knowing that discomfort, again, in the same way that the discomfort in a prep phase, it expands that circle. It's the exact same thing in the off season. If you can push past, especially as a female, I think, if you can push past that almost a society norm of like always having to be small and like not being strong and all this type of stuff, and if you can go in and beast a session and beat a guy on every single rep and every set, then, well, what are you going to focus on? What's going to be more helpful or less helpful to your journey? And it's almost like contextualizing it a little bit in that way. That's what's going to help you pull your head out your ass even on the bad days.
Yeah, all fair points. One of the main things I think that's pretty eye-opening that I had forgotten about was the change that you made from 2018 to 2019. Your off season was as a student, and who else can say that? They gained the tissue that you gained, and they handed in their dissertation on a Friday, and did a show on a Sunday. People tell me they don't have the time to compete. I just show them you. I just say, here's someone that goes to bed at 8:30 at night, now works a full-time job, does coaching online, blah, blah, blah. The year before masters, blah, blah. And I think that it's a definite, we said that you're a definition of a box ticker, perhaps definition of hard fucking work.
Yeah. But the thing is that ultimately hard work, that, it's hard work will beat kind of luck and genetics in the sport.
We don't believe in luck.
That's it. It's a mere certainty, as you would say. If you put in the work, and that's it. It's ultimately, and again, it's about being committed to that process. I mean, I know when I stepped off stage in 2018 and I moved to Loughborough to do my masters, I was like, well, I know I'm competing next year, so I'm already committed to that goal. Like, it's going to happen in a year's time. So never mind just prep. Like, now I'm going to have to, 5 o'clock in the morning, my friends would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like 5 o'clock in the morning, getting up and going to the gym. And I was like, well, I've got training to do. This is part of what I need to do in order to achieve the goals that I've set myself, in order to step on stage and be proud of myself for the hard work I've put in. And it's just about just grinding it out. And don't get me wrong, I mean, even now my alarm goes off at 4:45 and I go, some days I'm buzzing, other days I'm just like, fuck me, man. But you don't snooze it. You just get up, you have your coffee, you have your pre-workout meal, and you fuck off and you go train. It sounds, again, context is everything, right? But if you're passionate about what you do, if you have big goals, and if your interest and your passion for those goals are stemming from a healthy place, then ultimately you need to know what you need to do, and you need to enjoy doing what you do, 9 times out of 10 at least, even on the shitty days.
Yeah, 100%. Because I think something else to add, that if you're invested in the journey, I think when you get to the destination, you appreciate it so much more because of the time it fucking took you to get there.
Yeah.
It's like next year when you go on stage, and I have no doubts of what I know you will achieve.
Mm-hmm.
That will not have happened by chance.
No.
You will have not have been lucky. It's because you fucking worked hard.
Exactly.
And the harder that you work, the luckier that you get. Isn't that funny? That's what people say. Like, oh my god, but so you're so lucky. And you go, that's funny, because it seems like, just as I said, the harder you work, the luckier you get. Again,
and people don't want to see that. People see the 18-week prep. They don't see the 40, 50-year off season that you took, pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, training really hard, looking at your logbook, and genuinely just every time thinking, oh Christ, this is gonna be hard, but still going in and still beating the numbers. People don't want to see that, because people don't want to understand and appreciate that in order to achieve big things, it takes more than the 18-week prep. The 18-week prep might start you off, an 8-week prep might start you off, by all means, but the goalposts continue to move all the time. And that's the exciting part of it, because you're chasing a better version of yourself that you will achieve, because you're now doing the do to be that person in the future.
Yeah, 100%. Now, I know we're getting on here, but one thing I think that we will almost wrap up on, well, not quite wrap up on, but it's just, I'm sure there's been many moments, and you've alluded to them throughout the episode, that you've maybe thought that, like many first timers do, like, just, I'll never get there.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck, that'll never be me. Like, for example, like last year, and I was like, Clara, you're going to win a show this year. That's the target. You're like, what? You know what I mean? So talk us through. Have you went through that before? Just for the advice of the girls that are sitting there, because I know one in particular, they're sitting there thinking that's them. They're like, I'll never get like that. I'll never do that. Any of those moments that you've been through, and advice you would give because from that?
Plenty of moments where I've been there. My best advice is to, like I've sort of said before, is have the faith that the work that you're doing today is helping towards you reaching that goal eventually. I know that goals do have a time frame on them, but ultimately it's just about understanding that you're now doing what you need to be doing. You can't be doing anything else, and that right now you're doing everything that you could possibly be doing to get to that place. Just because someone else is dieting and you're in an off season doesn't mean you should be dieting, because your goals are different. So focus on where you're at now, focus on your journey, and only compare yourself to where you were before. You may have never thought that you were the type of person who would be in a gym 5 days a week. You might have not thought you were the type of person who will track their macros every day, someone who stays consistently checking in with a coach every single week for however many weeks. You might not have thought you were the person that was able to do that, but you are, because you're doing that already. So remind yourself of what you've already accomplished. And like I said, don't try and fast forward the process. Don't try and accelerate it. There's no use in that. It will take as long as it takes. Same with the bulking phase, same with the dieting phase. It will take as long as it needs to take. So don't try and shortcut it just because it took whoever on Instagram to, like, because they can prep in 12 weeks. Maybe they've done it before. Maybe they don't push their body weight up that much because they didn't need to.
Yeah.
Fuck knows. I mean, it could be so many different things. So yeah, when you feel like you can't do it, focus on what you can do today, focus on what you've already done up until now, and be content with knowing that that is everything you need to be doing right now. Because if there's more, your coach will tell you, because you'll know that there's more that you can do. If you finish a set and you go, I could have gone harder, go harder. Yeah. If you finish a day and you know you went over your calories, you know that's on you also. Just trust that if you're doing everything that you can do, trust that it's enough.
Yeah, 100%. I think more so now, like if you were to come on board right now in the position you were in 2018, we wouldn't compete for 2 years.
No.
But I mean, and I say this to people a lot, I have to give yourself and a few others that still work with me a lot of credit that you guys allowed me to make those mistakes and become a better coach, right? But and for that now, clients that come on board, I'm always like, right, you want, like, there's a few people that have signed up now that I'm like, right, if you want to compete, it's the tail end of 2022, the earliest. I was like, if you want to step on stage, I was like, I'm not coaching. And I guess that as coaches, we have a prerogative to tell people and be honest. If we know, because at the time I was like, yeah, cool, Clara, let's just do a show, fuck it. But hey,
but I'm so grateful that you did, because if I'm honest, if I hadn't stepped on stage in 2018, I don't think I would have had the confidence to to commit to a goal like that during my master's year. I would have probably gotten cold feet, which means that I maybe wouldn't have competed up until now, and maybe I would have said, actually, this is not for me. I probably wouldn't be a fucking coach. I mean, it would just be so different. So again, sometimes you just go with those decisions and they tend to be the best outcome. And like you said, we all need some space either to make mistakes or to learn from those mistakes from other people. I'm very lucky that I get to work with you and Ali, and I've got you guys sort of in my corner helping me out. But no one was born knowing everything. And again, it's about, because we've been working together for so long, now that process just becomes easier and easier and easier, because we've got that much data and we know each other so well, that even like this sort of coach athlete communication, like it's so much easier. So yeah, and that plays a role too.
Yeah, I should also add that me and Ali don't know everything as well, for anyone listening out there, because you said me and Ali still have so much to learn. So much to learn.
But in terms of training and prepping people and that type of thing, you've got far more experience than I do.
Experience, that's all. We've worked with more bodies.
Yeah.
And the more people that you work with, the more mistakes you make, and then you learn from you learn not to do again, I suppose. Now, to wrap up this episode before we go, one thing I think that's kind of something I'll ask all people that come on the podcast is, just for you, what was the biggest thing that lockdown taught you, or the biggest lesson that you learned from lockdown, and advice you'd give from that?
I think what I learned from lockdown is how important your circle is, and how important it is to be able to voice your worries and your concerns to that circle, in the sense that they will make you realize how much more resilient you are. Because again, not that I want to geek out right at the end of this podcast, but a lot of the resilience research shows us that when we have a massive challenge, we can only grow and become more resilient from that challenge if we have the right amount of support to match it, right? So of course, lockdown and the last few months have been incredibly challenging, but I think I'm grateful enough to come out a stronger person because of the support that I had around me. So that resilience, seeing myself come out so much more resilient, has made me realize how important that circle and how important that support is. So advice for anyone is to make sure that you are being very purposeful with who you let into your fruit bowl, because if there's one wonky fruit, trust me, the rest will get to shit, and you don't want that. You really don't. You need to you need to put yourself first. You really do.
There was like a quote on Instagram, I'm sure you put that on your story the other day,
the fruit bowl one.
If there's like a bad lemon or something like that.
Yeah, it's something like, you wouldn't, what, I can't remember the quote, but one of my clients sent me it, and we use this all the time in our conversations. If she's listening, she'll be laughing right now. It's something like, your fruit bowl, like, will be affected by one, like, rotten banana, so get the fuck out of my fruit bowl.
Yeah,
Um,
effectively, one rotten banana is going to make everything else rot.
exactly. And it's so important to make sure, especially during challenging times, like what has been up until now, what will probably continue to be for a wee while, making sure that that the people that you're relying on are people you trust, and that are also going to be there for you when that it's not just like a one-way relationship where they offload and you don't get anything back. Anyway, I could go off on one with that, but yeah, I think it's make sure that when you are facing challenging situations that you have the right support around you, and if you feel like you don't, you can always reach out to people who are more than willing going to be there to support you. If you've been going through, if you're a bodybuilder or if you are interested in physique sports, making sure that you've got your coach, if you're coach like us, if you've got a team around you, reaching out to that team. I mean, like I messaged you guys the other day, I was like almost getting emotional because all of our clients are like having conversations, like sharing advice, like hyping each other up on the female group chat. I was like, oh my god, our little babies. But it is like, it's so exciting because then they benefit so much from that support, as do we. So yeah, make sure you curate your fruit bowl, and reach out to those that you can get help from when you need help. Don't try and be a superwoman, trust me, or a superman. It doesn't work.
Yeah, you're 100% right, and I'm always forever grateful when I see moments like that to have been part of bringing people together. It is awesome because there's a lot of females in that chat. I know that without that support, probably would have given up a long time ago, or probably would have not been where they are in their journey. If it wasn't for just being that support network. And some of them might not even say anything, but they're just the fact that they're part of it and they feel like a community is awesome. And I guess that should bring us to conclude that if you are out there and you are thinking of anything that Clara said, fucking hell, yeah, I'm thinking that and whatnot. I've not really said much. I've just sat and listened, like I tend to do, right? Now is the opportune. That's not even a word.
Opportunity and time.
An opportunity to come on board and get involved with the team. Yes, we have just launched our 8-week physique program that is sold out. However, that is because we capped the amount of spaces because obviously we prioritise a lot of our time to full online coaching clients, and we'll have spaces available. Not many, but there is some. But I guess what I've seen is the team get a lot better results, not only on stage but just with their physique, with such a community around them, and that's a big thing that I say to anyone that when I first started my journey, there wasn't anything like that, and it was just Ali. Right, Ali's still around. 4 years later, I can't get rid of the guy. But no, I'm grateful to be a part of it. I just went off on a little bit of a rant there.
No, but totally, and I think that maybe our clients don't hear it often enough. But I think I speak for Ali and you too, and we say that we're so grateful for those who work with us now, but also those of us who've been working with us for the last 6 months, because certainly it's kept us going, and being able to still provide value to other people's lives, like again, you just can't put a price on that. It's so rewarding and it's so exciting to get up on check-in days, know that you're gonna get everyone coming through to you, seeing their process. Like, it's a very, very exciting process in itself, and it definitely, it's just awesome. It really is.
It is indeed. Right, well, I think that kind of sums up the episode, that coaching and being part of someone's journey is fucking awesome. If you're listening, if you thought this podcast was the bee's knees, please do share it on Instagram. Go give Clara's page a follow. I'm sure, but if you're listening to this, they already follow you. But if not, please do go follow it. And I'm sure I speak for me and Clara when I say, wherever you are, wherever you do, give it the beans.